for this winter with more to follow. Is it ever going to be enough? We'll talk to a senior clinician on that point as well. We're broadcasting, of course, on Facebook for the first section, which is facebook.com/LBC, which in essence is moving pictures. This is the visual version of the programme. The whole thing. Facebook.com/LBC. Now, when I say the whole thing, that's the whole picture, as distinct from the whole show. Get in there quickly, because it's only the first section. While stocks last, in retail parlance. 0345 6060973, text 84850, and of course you can tweet at LBC. I want to begin where else but here. Chancellor Philip Hammond has essentially, I was about to say he's somehow got the better of his critics, but as we mentioned last night, a little bit more analysis on a post-budget debrief often throws up the very opposite. There are some great headlines in there, but I don't think I've ever seen a Chancellor deliver a budget where there weren't great headlines. It's kind of the point, isn't it? Some little moments where you can pluck out some savoury facets to the fiscal goings-on of the United Kingdom PLC. And, of course, the big headline was the scrapping of stamp duty for the first 300,000 quid spent by first-time buyers. This is pretty huge stuff. It's huge in that it's symbolic. It's been done before. Labour had a crack in this department once before, and already the Office for Budget Responsibility has said there's a bit of a problem with this. It'll put up the cost of a house, and therefore any gain will be lost within the increase of the price of the house in the first place. So regardless of what you think of that, I think most first-time buyers will probably look at this and not be condemning a Chancellor who said, I can save you maybe 5,000 quid. That said, I think he's missed a point. At this life of ours, we've touched on this phrase many times, the tipping point, does sort of rest on these curious moments where narratives that were once seen as firmly ensconced in the status quo of life change. And what we thought we would always believe, everybody wants to buy a house, kind of changes. And I'm sort of sensing that this British appetite, that every young person's aim, above anything else, is to buy a house, to own your own house. I'm not sure that's any longer true. Now, I might have this completely wrong. I will defer to your knowledge and experience if you can explain that I'm completely all over the place on this, and actually that is still primarily the number one aim, buy your own house. I'm thinking now that people just want to be able to afford somewhere to live. If that means buying it, fine. If that means renting it, fine. The kind of post-Thatcherite appetite that was there, that the big one in life. You could do all sorts of things in life. You do well in your career, you can get yourself a new car, you can have a great wardrobe, a shiny new watch, you can have all the kit and caboodle. But until you've got your own house, I'm sensing that there is a dwindling, a diluting of that desire. Now, the government clearly feel they've done their homework, and they believe, as governments tend to, that their own research would show that way and above anything else, the basic desire of not just Brits, but they would perhaps argue the human condition, although, of course, we know there are countries around the world that depart a little from this. The basic desire is to own your own place. If you own your own place, everything begins there. You have your own stake, you have your own responsibility, your value systems feed in to all of that. So it's not just about owning bricks and mortar, it's an entire philosophy, if you like. It's a journey you begin on, and it informs so many other areas of how you go about your daily goings-on economically and otherwise. That's, I think, the thinking behind, partly the thinking behind home ownership. I might be giving Philip Hammond a little bit too much credit on that. But you broadly take the point that the idea that it is paramount to everyone's journey, certainly in the UK, but beyond, to own your own place. True or false? 0345 6060 973. Has Philip Hammond jumped the gun on housing with regards to young people? Is it any longer the same desire and sense? Lots of things change narratives. For example, house prices will have changed people's expectations and therefore desires, and that no longer becomes a temporary thing. It becomes precisely ingrained into people's thoughts. Jeremy Corbyn, I think, has probably changed that debate somewhat as well. Priorities change. The Conservatives would believe that regardless of all of that, whatever difficulties, whatever we say about housing bubbles and inflated prices and shortage of homes, etc., the core desire of most young people is to buy your own home. True or false? 0345 6060 973. It's rather interesting because nobody, and I don't know how many times I have to come on air and make this point, it's not an original point, but it doesn't matter how many experts you speak to, whether it's a chancellor, whether it's an estate agent, whether it's a property lawyer, whether it's somebody who just knows the whole overarching argument about finance and house building, etc. What is palpable to me above anything else is that no one I've ever spoken to, and I think I've probably interviewed maybe hundreds of people in this area, absolutely nobody has a clue how to solve or arrest the spiralling cost of a house. And it's interesting that the OBR made this point after Philip Hammond announced the scrapping of stamp duty. They said, well, all that's going to do is put the price of a house up. And I was scratching my head thinking, how does that work? Well, what happens then? Is there something within the kind of fiscal mechanics of abolishing a stamp duty and one figure, like an air bubble, has to move? And no, it's not that at all. It's a man-made thing. It's just a man-made thing. The market just decides. You'd think the market wasn't a law of physics, but it appears to be just that. The market will realise, oh, there's £5,000 going spare. We'll just put the price of the house up there. Wow. Wow. Couldn't the market decide not to do that? And then Hammond's giveaway will sound so much more generous. I'm genuinely confused by that. It's the market. The market will naturally work out that there is an extra 5k going spare in the equation, and therefore it will bolt that onto the value of the house. So the 5,000 you think you're saving, you won't be saving because the house will be more expensive. But nobody is physically desiring that. Maybe the odd homeowner will enjoy the fact their house is worth a little more. It apparently just happens, does it? 0345 6060 973. M says, the usual Ian Collins right-wing claptrap. No, everyone doesn't wish to be a homeowner. It doesn't make you a better person. You never have any proof of it. Now, that's the point that I'm making. You're making the point that I'm making. It's the very opposite to what you're saying. I'm saying I don't think everybody wants to be a homeowner. Dearie me. How did that get mistranslated in a 10-minute rant at the beginning of a programme? Phil in Wembley. Evening, Phil.
Evening.
Hello.
So
what are your
on
thoughts?
The comment you just made about the person who says he doesn't want to look to buy a house.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at it, rent and mortgages, I would say, are pretty comparable. You know, you've got that thing of the massive down payment, but at the end of the day, so essentially it's an investment where the first 25 years of your life, you'll be paying a lot of money. But after that, you're quite a few £100 better off every single month.
So now, you might as well buy your house.
If you can.
Because it's not going to be any cheaper to rent it.
I wouldn't say it's not going to be. It will definitely not be cheaper, but it will be easier.
The sticking points are things like deposits. That, of course, is the issue that causes most people some concern.
So with younger people who, as you mentioned, are not as interested nowadays in buying houses, I think that comes from the fact that it's much more difficult nowadays. So someone who were to put a deposit on an average house, which the Chancellor has announced today as being around £300,000,
mm-hmm.
So you can get a mortgage up to around 4 times your annual earning in general circumstances. There are exceptions, such as having a guarantor. But generally 4 times your earnings, for an average earner of about, let's say, £25,000, that's up to £100,000. That means you've got to come up with £200,000 of your own money to be able to look at buying a house.
So in terms of what they call a giveaway in a budget, you welcome the news, but it doesn't solve the problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in my own circumstances, where I personally am very much looking forward to buying a house and planning ahead in life, £5,000, if I were earning, just over £1,000 a month, it means I could buy a house at least 5 months early if I was saving a lot towards a house. 5 months is a long time. So
there are benefits in this. It doesn't, of course, address the fact that the house itself is still astronomical to purchase. Phil, thank you for starting us off. 0345 6060 973. If you are a first-time buyer, how are you framing this one? Ideally, what any first-time buyer would like to hear is that the Chancellor is going to bring in a mechanism that will halve the cost of a house. They're just going to get very, very cheap overnight. Isn't that fantastic? Whoopie-doo. Philip Hammond's going to slice the value of everyone's homes by 50%. That, of course, was never going to happen. Building more homes, which, of course, he did touch on, eventually, by the mid-2020s, we'll be getting to this dizzy figure of 300,000 a year, apparently. Too little, too late. I just wonder whether he's kind of missed a trick here, and that the Conservatives have done what the Conservatives very often do, and I suppose the Blair government, not too far away ideologically, and the Brown governments tinkered around the same department, and that is work on the basis that everyone wants to buy. Young people need to buy a home, and you need at some level to ingratiate yourself with that group, of course, as a voter as well. So let's not kid ourselves that budgets don't have an election consideration built within them either. If you can get hundreds of thousands of people buying homes and enjoying the benefits of stamp duty being scrapped, come the next election, they won't forget who gave that to them. That's the theory behind, or part of the theory behind all of this. In terms of making the housing market move, it doesn't really do anything, does it? Is it really outside the gift of great men and women in this country, whether they're politicians, lawyers, designers, architects, home builders, house builders, to come up with some kind of scheme, something that will make it affordable to live in a house, which is why I wonder whether Philip Hammond, whilst appeasing a small group, has in fact missed the boat here. I'm not sure there is any longer the same appetite for home ownership as there was even a couple of years ago. 0345 6060 973. We'll go to the phones with more comment from you on LBC next.
This is LBC.
We all want the best healthcare for our family and to be well looked after in old age. But as a sector, there are many challenges to overcome. BT believes that technology will play a major role in revolutionising health services in the UK, with mobile, unified communications and video conferencing, creating digitally connected workplaces. The result? Increased collaboration and efficiency. For more information about BT, plus the chance to win an incredible iPhone 8, visit lbc.co.uk.
Critics are falling in love with British movie sensation Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool.
That's Gloria Graham, big name in black and white films.
Witness the extraordinary true story of a real-life Hollywood romance.
Won an Oscar too.
Radio Times calls it beautifully made, witty and incredibly moving. And The Guardian says there is tremendous warmth and tenderness to this sweet, sad love story. Don't miss Annette Bening, Jamie Bell and Julie Walters in Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool. In cinemas now. Rated 15.
We all love a Sunday roast, but we don't always have time to rustle one up midweek. Or do we? Our new Bisto Best ready-to-use gravy pouch is made with real meat juices for that authentic, rich, roasted flavour. Simply heat and pour for the best chicken roast dinner on a Wednesday. Ah, Bisto.
When you need more space.
Think creatively. What could you use a log cabin for? A studio? A home office? A den for the kids? Creative Living will design and build a log cabin to suit your needs, even taking care of electricity and climate control. See for yourself at our 3 large cabin display villages in Surrey. Find out where at creativelivingcabins.co.uk.
Your own log cabin, handcrafted, the creative living way.
Everyone who comes to TDC Smile in a Day has a story to tell.
I couldn't eat a baguette or fruit, an apple.
We gave John dental implants and natural-looking fixed teeth in just one day.
What I didn't want was to have teeth taken out and then have to wear dentures.
Around 3 months later, we exchanged his fixed teeth for his final permanent set. To see life-changing before and after pictures and independent patient reviews, visit smileinaday.co.uk or call TDC Harley Street on 0203 7334 986.
Take the step, because it's life-changing.
0203 7334 986.
Travel Pack. Have the right flight at the right price. In fact, we'll price match most worldwide flights if you find one cheaper elsewhere at the time of booking. So, if you need to book a flight, remember the Travel Pack price match. Call Travel Pack on 0208 903 9999. You won't find a better price for your flight. Travel Pack 0208 903 9999. ATOL protected. Excludes low-cost operators. Competitors must be ATOL licensed. Conditions apply.
Late Nights with Ian Collins on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
How do they do that in Germany, by the way, in terms of the lack of desire to own your own home? There are clearly lots of home owners in Germany. I mean, you still have to rent. You still have to pay a rent. And then, of course, when you retire, that rent has got to be met somehow, either via pensions or some other state contribution of some sort. Quite fathom that. Maybe if somebody can shine something like that would be great. Mitch in North London says, the changing nature of the workplace means that young people need to be more mobile now than they needed to be even 20 years ago. So renting a home is often more practical than buying one. That's a really good point, isn't it? The idea that you can, I mean, certainly if you're in a low-skilled part of the economy, I mean, whilst there are call centres and packing jobs, which are the usual two that are mentioned, in towns and cities all over the place, that there is certainly, perhaps mobility is more of a thing for a younger age group now than ever before, for that reason. So renting would be perhaps useful. I'm just not sensing the same levels of desire to own a home. Simon says, I still want to buy a house. Buy-to-let has destroyed my chances of doing that. The government have funded the transfer of wealth to the landlords by printing money for banks, creating cheap credit. A friend of mine who, in a slightly curious position, he is a buy-to-let landlord, but he's also a massive Corbyn supporter and fundamentally believes that of all the things he thinks the state do better, this is the one area they never do better. And believes that, he's only in his sort of early to mid-30s, believes that actually individuals and private landlords can do this much better when they do it responsibly. He hasn't got a massive portfolio, he's got a couple of places that he rents out. But he felt that George Osborne scuppered his chances of expanding his empire because of the fairly brutal rules and regulations that were brought in to stop the buy-to-let, or at least curtail the buy-to-let idea. I have no experience of this at the moment. I'm not in that place, but maybe others who are will have differing views. Simon, thank you for that. Mark's in Bristol. What are your thoughts, Mark? Good evening.
Hi, so I was just saying to your research, I actually live on a boat in Bristol, which is I mean, I spent a lot of time living in the Netherlands, which kind of got me interested in it. And I just realised that there was literally nothing I could afford in Bristol unless I wanted a bed sit miles and miles out of the city.
Yeah.
So, this boat came up, and, I really like it. It's bigger than any flat I've lived in Bristol, and, I'm really happy.
So, just talk us through a little bit of the numbers here, Mark. What does it cost to buy a houseboat, and what are the ongoing running costs?
Well, you can buy a decent boat that's equivalent to like a two-bedroom flat for about £50,000, and you can spend pretty much anything depending on the age and how well it's done out inside, but around 50 to 60 would get you something fairly decent for a single person. And then you pay sort of like £2,000 a year in mooring fees, but you don't pay any council tax, and the running costs are really low. Obviously there's maintenance, but if you're someone who's quite handy and willing to do the bits and pieces yourself, it's pretty good.
So the £2,000, is that mooring? Is that the...
It is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what, about £120 a month of that order, and that's you kind of, and that's you kind of done. It's clearly cheaper, isn't it? Much cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, I do think also, because like in the Netherlands, a lot of people, it's a lot easier to get a social property in the Netherlands, and a lot of people, they don't have that drive to want to buy somewhere because they're renting. The prices are more reasonable, and it's secure. Like I had a flat a year when I first moved to Bristol, because I'd move in, pay all the agency fees, get the deposit money, pay all the rent, and after a year they'd be like, oh, I'm selling it, and I'd be booted out. And that happened 3 times, 3 in a year. And it's just a nightmare because you can't settle, you're just constantly moving, and then, it's expensive to move as well. And it's just a nightmare.
When you're in a houseboat, and this is going to sound really naive, but that's because I've never really been on a houseboat, do you have to kind of walk around like, with your head ducked all the time? Can you stand up in your own boat?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, mine's a Dutch-style boat, so it's just a good, I've got like a good 2 feet above my head. But even in a narrow boat, you kind of have to crouch down to get in through the front. But then once you're in, it's full standing room, as long as you're not...
Well, that's part of the character, isn't it? That you have to do a little bit of manoeuvring in some places. You see it...
During the summer, I get to see the sunrise over the water from my bedroom window. Beautiful.
You don't wake up with a trout next to you or something?
No,
there's no pun intended there. Does it get cold?
No, I mean, basically you need decent heating, and when it's winter, you obviously need to have the heating on. But like my boat's got central heating system which runs off oil, just the same as houses that run off it. And I've got a wood burning stove as well. And I've never been cold, to be honest.
Good work. Mark, thank you for that. That does completely feeds into what we're talking about here, but also the other issue that we've talked about many times in the wake of the housing crisis, and that is alternative living, whether that's prefabs or boats or static homes, whatever you want to call them. There's simply got to be alternatives to what is currently happening. And I know lots of it is about the availability of land and planning permission and NIMBYism and all of these things and big house building projects. What you kind of want to hear from the government, I've said this consistently, that there is a sense right now that we need a revolution somewhere, not a French Revolution, a revolution in something of the nature of housing. The sort of us and them narrative, not always borne out in fact, between rich gazillionaires, of which there are very few, by the way, but we have a perception that they're lurking around every corner with their wicked ways and their massive property portfolios and their offshore accounts. But certainly something where I think the average person just wants a sense that the government are batting for them. And right now, I don't think we particularly have that sense. And Jeremy Corbyn's got that in bucket loads. However sincere you think it isn't, however false you believe it to be, there is a plan. There's a Corbyn plan. There is no Conservative plan. There isn't. If there is, I've never been able to find it. I don't know where it is. And I'm pretty sure that something, my last caller, houseboats, alternative living, cheaper home building, surely there's got to be something in there. Come on, it's the 21st century. Somebody can't come up with something where we can build homes that don't cost you £500,000 every time. David's in Enfield. What are you thinking, David? Hello.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Could you just explain to me, you think that you're looking for at the average, not the one who's on social housing, that's why the government doesn't help them. What is considered affordable to you? When you're saying that there's housing crisis, what price is considered affordable?
Well, whether I could give you a price or not, I'm sure your expert knowledge would question whatever price I put on it. But what we do know is that people in, if you like, standard jobs, a firefighter and a nurse, are struggling to buy an average house in many places.
In many places. Well, I understand you can't buy something in Kensington or Chelsea.
Yeah.
But
you used to be able to, though.
Yeah, but within a half an hour drive from London, you can buy houses for 200,000. Who says that he has to be able to buy in the city of London. I mean, when someone has a job in the Docklands and he's coming from the other parts of London, it's also going to take him a half hour.
Yeah.
So, sorry?
I said yes.
So what is the difference if he's coming from out of London? I mean, if you cover the Kent area, for example, Essex areas, this house has gone for £200,000.
Where, I don't know where in Kent you'd have to go to get a £200,000 3-bedroom house.
Chatham, all of these places.
Fair point.
I mean, there's full of places. Even in Enfield, houses can go for £350,000 to £400,000.
I understand what you're saying, but there's... Surely you would also acknowledge, you're a property developer, is that right?
Yes.
You would also acknowledge that even allowing for buying out of the city or buying with more realistic expectations, even allowing for all of those factors, there's still been a disproportionate increase in the cost of a house.
It depends what you call the cost of a house. I mean,
in terms of the fact that you could once...
out of London, prices haven't risen in the last years.
Well, you say they haven't in the last year, but I mean, if 20 years ago a forklift truck driver could buy a house and 3 times his salary was enough to get a mortgage, today that would be impossible.
You spoke before about doctors, etc., these sort of category. I mean, I think they could afford. I mean, I don't know if they can afford in the city of London, but they can afford all around.
Yes, I think you're right. I mean, I mentioned firefighters and nurses specifically, but yes, no, I take your point. There is such a thing as shopping around, and not everybody has the right to buy a place in the most expensive areas, and London happens to be some of the most, as you clearly know, David, some of the most expensive real estate on the planet right now. A brick is worth more than a block of gold in terms of investment down in the capital. Thank you, David, for that. I would still contend, however, that even allowing for moving out the area or not buying not buying a brand new house or not buying a house with an acre of land, even allowing for that, I think that the average earning couple 20 years ago would have been far better placed to buy without complication a first-time home than the average earning couple today. And that's, of course, you've got a dual issue going on there. You've got the problem with house prices increasing, and you've got the problem with wages stagnating. So there's a huge chasm there. David, thank you to you, sir. 0345 6060 973. More of your comments on this in just a second. Also to come this evening.
He's been kind of dismissive of the calls for more money for the NHS, saying, well, you know, it's going to be Armageddon. This is happening now, today, in the NHS, and if he doesn't realise that, he's completely out of touch.
This is the other part of the budget, the NHS. It's to be given more money, 350 million quid for this winter, but is it enough? Is there any number, any financial figure that could ever adequately address what the NHS really needs? We'll look at that. And we'll be crossing to New York to get the latest on what is happening with the rather extraordinary goings-on. This has kind of taken a bit of a back burner, this one, but pressure growing on the German Social Democratic Party to reconsider coalition talks with Angela Merkel. They've yet to form a government, despite the election being some time ago. We'll look at that and what it means for the wider implications of the EU in just a couple of moments. Right now, just gone 10:30, and the latest news headlines come from Paul Smith.
People buying their first home won't have to pay stamp duty if it's under £300,000, but the Chancellor's budget giveaway has raised concerns it'll push up house prices. Philip Hammond's also announced more money for the NHS in England and a plan for Brexit. Waiting times for universal credit payments will also be cut. Zimbabwe's next president told his supporters the country is witnessing a new and unfolding democracy. He'll be sworn in on Friday. Heavy rain is causing problems with flooding across western England and parts of Wales. Emergency services in Lancashire say they're dealing with 15 weather-related calls. LBC weather wet and windy for many tonight, with rain turning to snow across parts of Scotland, becoming drier and clearer across western parts later, a low of 3 degrees.
This is LBC.
Critics are falling in love with British movie sensation Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool.
That's Gloria Graham, big name in black and white films.
Witness the extraordinary true story of a real-life Hollywood romance.
Won an Oscar too.
Radio Times calls it beautifully made, witty and incredibly moving. And The Guardian says there is tremendous warmth and tenderness to this sweet, sad love story. Don't miss Annette Bening, Jamie Bell and Julie Walters in Film Stars Don't Die in Liverpool. In cinemas now. Rated 15.
The autumn budget. What will it mean for you, your family, the economy and business? Who'll be the winners and the losers? The Times asks all the taxing questions and provides in-depth analysis from Philip Aldrich, Paul Johnson and Patrick Hosking. Read the essential budget supplement, only in the Times, tomorrow.
Relax, it's Trust a Trader. Just type in your postcode, what you need, and ta-da! Local tradespeople appear. Visit trustatrader.com.
Trustatrader.com. I put her tea out while she rabbits on about Hannah's birthday party. I make sure the chips aren't touching the fish fingers, and she gets something from the jar for eating all her peas. She needn't know what a struggle it was getting up at 2 p.m. How hard it is to avoid the ulcers when I brush my teeth, or how it feels taking 13 tablets a day. Because I might have cancer. But the most important thing is that I'm Sophie's mum.
A mum with cancer is still a mum. Our support line is here to help you get through the hard days. Because life with cancer is still life, and we're here to help you live it. We are Macmillan Cancer Support.
Come to Galliard Homes for brand new London apartments from under £300,000. Westgate House is superbly located, just a 6-minute walk to the tube that has you in the West End in 21 minutes, which is roughly the same time it'll take you to drive to Heathrow. There are exclusive on-site facilities, rarely available to buy in a London development at these prices, such as 24-hour concierge, co-working space, a private screening room and health club. To live the London lifestyle from just £300,000, come to Westgate House, Westgate, Ealing, London, W5. Call 0203 770 6300 or visit galliardhomes.com. That's galliardhomes.com. Galliard, getting Londoners on the ladder.
Sky TV customers, bring the magic of Sky Cinema home this Christmas for just £10 a month. Cozy up in front of your favourite classics, like How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yes!
With over 1,000 movies on demand to watch whenever you want. And get a new premiere every day, like Kong, Skull Island.
That's a big one.
So, that's Sky Cinema for just £10 a month. Search Sky Cinema. New 18-month contract. Further terms apply.
Late Nights with Ian Collins on LBC.
Kieran says you made a mistake. You said 350 billion. It was actually 350. I did clear that up kind of immediately, but thank you. Jean says a lot of people can afford the monthly payments of a mortgage, but the deposits are too high. This needs to change. Look at the houses being built by the big building companies. The prices are staggering. No one can afford those. There needs to be more government control on this aspect. It's rather interesting because on one hand we do hear that they're giving away mortgages to people who can't really afford them, kind of a nod to the subprime that we obviously had in the sort of 08 period. But then on the other hand, it's really hard to get. It's never been harder to get a mortgage. Ragwin says when George Osborne removed the £250,000 stamp duty level in 2016, my house immediately jumped £75,000.